Hi, this is Jeremy Murphy. I am a life coach and creator of the Positivity Patrol. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the center of the United States, also known as the Midwest or the Great Plains, depending on how you work with your geography. And today's topic, we're going to talk about even-tempered Stoicism. And what I'm doing with the Positivity Patrol is to find positive ways that people can improve their lives, create a multimedia library that people can utilize to pull resources, to have those resources at your fingertips. I'm trying to show my work, and by that I mean my sources. I'm having to show my sources in my training as a health coach right now, so I'm trying to show you my sources here. I do have a degree in philosophy and history, and I obtained that before I got my law degree. So this has taken me back to my philosophical roots and historical roots. There's an intersection between the two, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But there's some links above that might help you give better perspective on Stoicism, what it is, what it isn't. The internet is just riddled with resources on the topic. And I don't want to create a situation where I'm giving you too many links, but those are the basic resources that I used. And so feel free to take a look at those if they're helpful. There's even more practical resources that, WikiHow has, how to be stoic and things like that. And that might be a little bit simplistic, but for people that don't know what Stoicism is or where to start, you have to start somewhere. And for some of us, it's good to start with a book. For others, it's good to start with an article. For some, they're a connection to some of the movies and books that have come out in the past 15, 20 years, and I'll talk about those a little bit. Trying to connect it to modern culture a little bit. And for some of us, that's helpful. It's tough to go back to Greco-Roman times and put ourselves in the place of Marcus Aurelius or who was the person before that? Epictetus, the slave who was the first, really the first significant person to teach Stoicism was Epictetus. I knew I was going to pronounce this incorrectly. Epictetus. Fortunately, a professor from Creighton University, where I got my law degree, is in the philosophy department there, and he is helping us pronounce it correctly. But Stoicism goes back to Epictetus. Epictetus goes back to about 1900 years ago, and Epictetus was walking the streets. A lot of us know the history of Socrates. Would walk around and talk to people, ask them deep philosophical questions, and see how they would react. He'd pick their brain, he'd try to get their response, figure out whether they're analyzing something correctly or not, or logically. And Epictetus did the same thing. And he was trying to get Romans to respond on different issues, where they stand with philosophy and things of that nature. And there was an ex-consul who didn't appreciate that. And so he rapped the philosopher on the head and tried to get him to stop that way. And Epictetus continued to teach Stoicism in Rome until there was an emperor named Domitian who banished all philosophers from Rome in the year 89. So that was a rough year for philosophers. They had to flee Rome, flee to the outskirts, other parts of Italy, other countries, and to try to keep their philosophy intact. But the interesting thing is this school of thought, it has an important calming effect that I think we lack today. And I think, again, that I don't think it's a perfect philosophy, but I think certain elements of it are very appealing and can be applied to our modern life. And I'll try to personalize this a little bit and tell you how I returned to Stoicism last year, because I was in a situation where I absolutely had to. I didn't have other philosophical answers that were satisfactory. And for someone that's a philosophical person, I've got to have philosophy of some sort, I can't have a philosophy of nothing, although philosophers would say that that is a philosophy. But basically, the idea for Stoicism, to simplify it, is if something happens in your life that's makes you angry or react, or perhaps overreact in certain cases, the idea is to create an inner sense of calm, and to really, I think we train ourselves to not react or overreact to something. We don't have to attend every argument we're invited to. And this is a very difficult thing for a lawyer like me to say and admit. But we have to pick our battles. Some battles are important. Some are not as important. Some are battles that should be fought by someone else entirely. And so the difficulty is if you adopt this too strongly, people would think you're reserved, aloof, not connecting with them, not understanding them, and they'll mistake your quietude for being aloof, when in fact you're being quiet purposely, as a way of dealing with situations as they come up. But the idea is you keep yourself in an even keel, more or less, so you're not having, it's great to get excited and happy about something, but if something bad happens, for example, if someone loses a football game and it's your team, and I've been a big sports fan all my life, and I've had to train myself. I've had too many lost football games where I've just had this strong negative reaction and getting all emotionally involved in it and all that. And I've had to detach myself from that and say, okay, if we win, it's okay. If we lose, it's okay. I'm going to try not to overreact either way. And I know it's easier said than done, but I've started adopting that because it's just not healthy to overreact if your team loses every week, because you can have, any of your teams could lose every week, and then you're in a constant downward spiral. So the idea that, the idea is tied to naturalism, to really looking at things as the way they are, using logic and reason to guide our decisions, and to try to make the right decision, and to not react or overreact to everything. Again, I don't think, it's kind of a quiet happiness is how I would put it with the, with the sources that I'm looking at. And, some of the sources get into what this best-selling book said about Stoicism, and I don't want to go ruining the plot of a best-selling book that I haven't even read the best-selling book that the author referred to that Tom Wolfe wrote, that goes into Stoicism. But anyway, the primary Stoic philosopher, and really there was only one philosopher king, and there was all this discussion among ancient philosophers of there should be this philosopher king, and ideally it would be someone with these ideals, and these would be the guiding principles, and this person would be guided by logic and reason, and justice and temperance and courage and humility. And it's very interesting. Of all the philosopher kings that could have been made, there's only one. There was only one philosopher king, and that was Marcus Aurelius. And he was one of the best, at least one of the few Roman emperors who was good. And I think we see that reflected in his book of Meditations. And it's just fascinating to see the way that things transpired with, Rome at that time. They had a system where people would adopt other younger proteges and teach them philosophy and history and maybe a little bit of political philosophy, things that were important. And so that was kind of happening with Marcus Aurelius, and that's how he developed his philosophy. And when he wrote his Meditations, it was really reflecting on the important ideals that he learned in his youth. So, and really it came down to, Marcus Aurelius said there are 11 duties that he believed that we owed to others. And I'm going to go through all of these because I think they intersect modern life in a powerful way. And I think they're very helpful. Some of them are challenging, and some of them reveal we have different definitions of things today than they did in ancient Rome. And I'll get to that with number 10. But the first duty that Marcus Aurelius thought that we owed to others was number 1, gratitude to those who embody virtues for us to model and who bless us with good lessons, that is, lessons in goodness and virtues of character. So essentially, it's gratitude. Gratitude is the key portion of that one. Number 2 is never to blame others. That's a challenging one. Number 3, to keep a watchful, friendly distance from those who have tried to injure us in the past. And we have, I think we all have painful experiences that we go through, and we have to find ways to cope with those, to deal with those in constructive manners. And in a lot of cases, I think we just let those people out of our circles. And I think that's consistent with Stoic philosophy, at least according to Marcus Aurelius. Number 4, very challenging. Number 4, very challenging. Never to be suspicious of, angry with, or hate others. Now, just the anger part of that is extremely challenging for a lot of us. And if you throw hate and suspicion in there, I mean, that is a high standard. We're talking about aspirational standards that a lot of us may not reach in our lifetimes. Maybe we're not thinking about those 3 together. For example, someone could have an issue with anger, but if they're not dealing with suspicion and hate, you've got to deal with all 3. There's an intersection there, and Marcus Aurelius talked about that. Number 5, never to abandon others. Very interesting. We have a lot of situations in life where if things get too difficult, we tend to drop them or set them aside. And whether that's considered abandonment or not, that's, you can have we could argue semantics on that. In some cases it might, in other cases it might not, but never to abandon others is number 5. Number 6, when others misbehave, to recall when we ourselves committed the same misdeeds that they did. So if someone gets angry at us and it's out of proportion and it's undeserved, under Stoic philosophy, according to Marcus Aurelius, we shut up, we remind ourselves, oh, I just did that to someone yesterday, or I just did that to someone last week. So how can I get someone angry at someone doing this to me? They're essentially making the same mistake that I did. So it's a sense of forgiveness. Let's see. The number 7, to remember that those who act badly act under compulsion, to understand the motives that compel them. This one is interesting because now we have modern diagnoses of obsessive compulsive disorder, or people with compulsive habits or tendencies, and I think this is what he's trying to get us to do, is to contextualize all that and to really analyze it in a fuller sense. So that's number 7. Number 8, to try to instruct those who act badly and convince them to do better. So if we know that we have knowledge that can help someone who's a bad actor, to teach them in a way that they can do better, in a calm manner, in a calm manner, without arguing with them, without showing anger and destructive emotions. I think that would be a correct interpretation of Stoic philosophy. Number 9, to tolerate others at all times, even when they don't learn to do better. Tolerance is tough. We see people that misbehave, and sometimes we try to gently tell them that, and they might continue to misbehave. And I mean, sometimes it's a deeper problem. But to be able to tolerate that and not allow it to interfere with our relationship, if that's possible. Number 10, to wish everyone well as our closest kin and fellow cosmic citizens. This is what it means to be cosmopolitan. Now, today, cosmopolitan, unfortunately, has been co-opted by Cosmopolitan magazine. But back in that day, it meant what cosmopolitan meant was universal. It meant the whole universe, that we're all citizens of the entire universe, and not just a little city-state or the capital of Rome or Italy. So you're finding a way to treat everyone as our closest kin. Think about that. That means treating everyone as if he or she were a family member, as close as you can get, an internal, immediate family member. Challenging, but aspirational. Number 11, to sincerely love those who share our lives with us. This can be very difficult. Sometimes it's easy to love those who share our lives with us, but sometimes it's really not. If they hurt us, and we've talked about that, if they hurt us, to not respond, to turn it into a automatic argument where you're just wasting a bunch of anger on each other. I mean, that's just not productive. But I think, Stoicism helps us realize that love and compassion are very important, fundamental, foundational parts of our lives. I do want to welcome Dave and Tony have joined us. I'm trying to recognize people as they come in, but I'm also trying to get through a lot of material to try to help people better understand Stoicism. And, I'd welcome any discussion or questions about it also. I'm going to change that to the question side in case there are any. Okay, just so it's clear. So how do we look at this with modern life? What can we do? Well, I mean, even before that, maybe I should get to. There was a quote here by someone. Let's see. One of Marcus Aurelius's teachers was a man named Marcus Cornelius Fronto. And Fronto and Marcus Aurelius exchanged letters as part of their correspondence. And if you look at historical documents, we have at least some of those letters preserved today. And one of the letters that Marcus Fronto wrote to Aurelius has a very fascinating quote. And I want to put this on the table because I think it is very powerful. He says, Fronto writes to Marcus, "But of all your virtues, this is the most admirable, that you unite all of your friends in harmony. I cannot conceal my opinion that this is much more difficult than to tame wild beasts and lions with a lyre." So, that is that we have so many people that divide others, that don't unify others. I don't know about taming wild beasts. That's still happening, obviously. And I guess the lyre was a musical instrument that was used. I don't really. I'd have to think about really what he meant with that. I guess entertaining the. You're not going to be able to tame wild beasts and lions with a lyre very easily unless you're a very skilled musician. And as a musician, I am a little pessimistic that would be very possible. But again, it's very interesting that these Marcus Aurelius's meditations have been preserved, and a lot of people, when we struggle in life, when we encounter adversity, a lot of us have turned to Marcus Aurelius's quotes, meditations, his writings, just to kind of put things on more of an even keel, put things in perspective. And I faced a moment last year when I lost my job and had to figure out how to deal with that in a positive way, not to respond with anger and hostility. And I had to let that go. And I looked at different ways to approach it. And finally, it took a couple coaches helping me redirect. And also, I remembered Stoicism, the being calm. And these coaches that were working with me, they were kind of moving me that direction. And they weren't really using the language of Stoicism, but they were using those tactics of pressing the pause button, stepping back, putting things in perspective, looking at, the end of something is providing new opportunities to do something else. And so I decided I have to try to integrate this back into my personality. It was a part of me before, and I, going to law school, you unlearn how to do things like to be calm and stoic. I mean, it tends to make you more of a rhetorical, adversarial type of person if you let it. But I believe that we can unlearn things that are no longer productive. And so I tried to let go of a lot of the adversarial characteristics, turning to anger and things like that. They're not productive. Life is short. We can't waste our time on needlessly getting angry over something that doesn't deserve anger, or the anger is just going to interfere with our ability to cope with what we're facing and move on in a productive way and be able to transform our lives. And you can't transform your life if you're encumbered by things like anger and hostility and hatred, fear, worry, just all these things. We just have to find ways to limit those desires and concerns. That's what Stoicism teaches us. So Stoicism is going through a renaissance in the world, not just here in the United States, but I would say around the world. It's become more popular. There's a Stoic Week. I am disappointed that as a philosophy major, I didn't know there was a Stoic Week until doing research for this blab. But that is, there's a Stoic manual that Stoic Week puts out every year that you can, in 35 pages, you can learn how to be Stoic according to the Stoic Week folks. There are countless videos on YouTube teaching you how to be Stoic and what that means and what to attach it to. And I think the interesting thing is that you can attach Stoicism to just about any philosophy, and it will still work. I was watching a video last night. There was a philosophy professor trying to convince a bunch of secular humanists that they should turn Stoic, that they should incorporate that with their secular humanism. And there are aspects of this that could translate to other faith-based philosophies too, that are just consistent with having that degree of calm and awareness of the present, sticking to the present instead of getting caught up with the fear or worry of happening in the past or what's going to happen tomorrow, the fear of tomorrow. That's just not productive. So let's see, talked about that. So really if we want to be happy, what we want to do as Stoics is to want to train ourselves to limit our desires and concerns to what is up to us, and to not worry about, fear, or get upset when things that happen that are not up to us, the things that we don't have control over. So with this it's a coping strategy, but it's deeper than that. It's a philosophy. It's a grounding philosophy. It can be a foundational grounding philosophy. And again, I don't think it's not an all or nothing thing. There are some aspects of, at least of ancient Stoicism, that I have sharp disagreement with, and I'm not going to get into those. That goes beyond the scope of this blab, and I don't want to take you down a philosophical rabbit hole that has nothing to do with the topic today. But maybe someday if I talk more about Stoicism, we'll get to that. But the idea is to do the right thing every time we face a decision, and to do so without losing our calm, without getting frustrated, and without getting angry. So it's my daughter likes to make these keep calm and blank signs. Keep calm based on keep calm and carry on, and you fill in the blank with something. It's a really cool, crafty thing that kids do. And I saw a sign yesterday doing this research. It said, keep calm and stoic on. And boy, there's a lot of truth to that. You could, it can be a revolutionary thing, philosophy to incorporate into your lifestyle, because it completely changes the way you look at things. You're not reacting to things. You're not overreacting to things. You're responding to things in a prudential way, where you're making a logical judgment as to what the most constructive way to respond is. And the most constructive way to respond is to give a gentle reply that might say, well, I disagree with you because of this, but not making it into a big argument. To give you an example, we have to pick our battles, and some things we have to take the stoic path for the sake of maintaining peace in a relationship. I'll give you an example. This week, Thanksgiving week, my family, we all divide up the dishes. We decide who's going to cook what and when and all that. And usually we cook the sweet potatoes almost every year. I don't know why. I think it used to have something to do with how many marshmallows per square inch we put on them. But lately it's gotten more to, last year I used recipes from Chef Dennis, who is here on Blab and also on Google Plus for sweet potatoes. And then this year my wife decided, no, we're going to do the green beans. And she did this without consulting me. And I'm allergic to beans. So there's that issue. Now we have a large family, and so, okay, we're serving something I'm allergic to. I guess it's not a big deal, but I really, the sweet potatoes are more healthy to me, and I can eat them. And I could get all upset and angry and frustrated and make this a big issue and fight with my wife about it. But is that really productive? What is that going to, this is a difficult week to begin with. We're thrown together with my entire family. I'm going to be with all 6 of my siblings, my parents, a bunch of nieces and nephews, our daughter, our dog, other relatives are all coming for my mom's 70th birthday party this weekend too. So if I make a big deal out of the green beans versus sweet potatoes, I mean, do we really want to have a fight over that? No. So I've decided, even though it goes against I could make a point and, for the sake of argument, to try to prove that I could win, I could argue sweet potatoes against my wife's green beans, but that's not going to help our relationship. That's just going to make things worse. So I think what I'm going to do is to be stoic, to back off, to make the green beans, make them happily, and not say another word about it. And if my wife brings it up again that I was upset about this, I'm just going to shut up, because, chances are I've probably done something wrong in my life, and maybe I just need to let that go. I mean, you can't respond to everything. Some things you got to just let people vent if they're angry or whatever. So for the sake of being stoic and for peace, harmony, and tranquility on our Thanksgiving, I'm going to relinquish the sweet potatoes, but I will insist on them next year. And I'll cook the green beans happily. So there will be other food I'm not allergic to. So, I mean, it's not a huge deal, but traditions die hard. We get used to traditions like that. And so I think we'll bring the tradition back next year. We can go back to the sweet potatoes. Okay. Now that I've made you all hungry, or not, I'm not sure if you even like those foods or not. I guess I'll find out soon. But the Stoics really believed if we strive every day to do our best, then we can have acceptance of whatever else happens. We find a way to deal with everything else constructively, knowing that we did our very best, that we did our best to make the right decision. And we just, we fall back to this position of acceptance. It's kind of it's a go with the flow type of philosophy, although they didn't use that language back then. That's a little more modern. So if we can be virtuous and rational in the way we make decisions, that can really help us achieve happiness and peace of mind. And that peace of mind is really important, because if we can achieve inner peace of mind, it radiates. And I think you would have to agree with me. Moments where we are troubled and turbulent and upset and angry and frustrated, and we're just venting things to the world, and we're taking on everybody, and we're punching anybody that comes in our sight verbally, that radiates too. That if we're that adversarial, that's going to reflect in the world. That's going to reflect in the world. There'll be a diminishment of peace, diminishment of harmony. So, taking the Stoic path is to do the opposite, to create enough inner space and to take the time to do it. And I think meditation is a part of that. And my path back to Stoicism, I did return to meditation. I had, maybe tried meditation a couple times in the past and didn't know what I was doing. Nobody really, taught it to me that really knew what they were doing. And then last year, when I encountered these two coaches, one of them teaches meditation at a very high level. I would say a world-class level. And I was just having direct contact with her, having her guide us through meditations and things like that. It was life-changing. And finally, I realized that I have to do this. I have to try to meditate every day, or at least every other day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And you can do it in 1 minute. I have a friend named Austin Go that's on here on Blab. He keeps reminding us you can meditate in 1 minute. A lot of us are trying to count how many minutes and say, well, if it's less than 15 minutes, it's not meaningful. Well, that's not true, because quality can matter more than quantity. If you're in a deep meditative state, that means a lot, even if it's just for a minute. I mean, if we're in tumult and chaos and destruction and crises are blowing up all over the place, and we take 5 minutes for meditation, it makes a big difference. It has a huge calming influence. And I realized the more I made this a part of my daily routine, unfortunately, sometimes it's not daily, sometimes it's maybe every other day, that it just depends. Sometimes you forget. But every once in a while, I'll still get an email from this coach with, free additional meditations. And she has free meditations on her website, and, some that are, premium products, but that you pay for, but they're really very good. And I think, we all have our own sources or people we might turn to for that. But the Stoics were meditative folks. They would, to give you a picture, if a Stoic were walking around in ancient Rome or ancient Greece, there are some, it is a Greco-Roman philosophy is where the roots occurred of this philosophy. It would be the person walking the streets quietly, thinking, not just thinking, but thinking at a deep level, reflecting, analyzing in a logical fashion, mixing reason in there, figuring out what's the right path to take and why. And they would be the deep, meditative, quiet people, I would think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure a lot of us take the time to do that these days. We're bombarded by technology, by emails, by phone calls, by text messages. Our phones are beeping every 5 seconds for, it seems like 5 seconds, sorry, about something or other. Someone's trying to give us a message, or, send us something, or figure out what's for dinner on Thanksgiving, or that type of thing. But, we have to detach from that. And I think Stoicism does have that type of detachment, but in a healthy way. So we're not being aloof and distant. We're just being reflective, quiet, passive, but in a good way. I want to be careful with passivity. There's a little bit of a debate over how passive Stoicism really is, or was, or can be. But I think the passivity is, it's really part of the philosophy. not really making sure that every step is measured, not overanalyzing everything, but analyzing it at a deep enough level that you've made a serious deliberation of what you're going to do on a certain decision to make sure you're doing the right thing and not impulsively doing the wrong thing, getting angry at someone, destroying a relationship, saying the wrong thing. And I've been in meetings where you're sitting there and you suddenly have a sensation that you're going to say the wrong thing. And I've had to sometimes say, look, I'm going to have to end this meeting. I don't want to say something I'm going to regret. I want to make sure that we can get to want to make sure we can get to the what we need to cover, but to not create a situation where we're just ripping relationships apart. I think that happens a lot. Sometimes we say too much. We say the wrong thing. The other person takes it the wrong way. You've got a broken relationship, and then you've got to decide, is it worth it to fix it or not? And if so, how? So the Stoicism, it creates the internal sensation and intelligence that we need to hesitate to act, even if it's just for a moment, just to pause and reflect. Am I saying the right thing? Is this really the wrong thing to say or ask at this time? And to really actually to kind of censor our what we're going to say sometimes, because I think we all say things too much or in too angry a tone, and we end up having to put our foot in our mouth, and it's not productive to do that. It's not productive to do that at all. So let's see. We have a question from Kristen. Let's see. Do you believe that it's possible to live with a prayer in your heart always? I do. There have been moments where I've had serious doubt and confusion, and just felt like everything is falling apart. And I have to believe that now. I just seen too many. I've seen a lot of what I would call miracles in my life, and I don't mean that in a theological sense necessarily. I mean it in kind of all hope seems lost, and someone provides that hope at the moment, just the moment you need it, and gives you just the right insights. You're able to shift perspective just in time before things fall apart. So I would say that I do. I know, I would feel lost without having something like that, actually. And there is I think for a lot of people, for a lot of us, there is a relationship between prayer and meditation kind of intersect. And so sometimes it's difficult to draw the line between those. One thing that Stoicism may have wrong might be kind of a lack of mysticism. I think there is a mysticism about the world that Stoicism doesn't seem to account for. It seems to be more of a naturalist philosophy that doesn't really deal with issues like the soul very well. So that's one aspect that I think Stoicism got wrong. So I would disagree with Stoicism on that. I think there is an extremely mystical sense of the soul that has to be accounted for somehow. And Stoicism just does not give us the answer to that. Let's see. And Dave asked a question. I should put these in one at a time while I answer them. Why didn't I do that? I'm sorry. Kristen, there's your question. And I think we've answered it. Prayer in your heart. Oh, yes, I think we've answered it. It's a good question. Good question. But I think we always have to have a sense of positivity, a sense of hope, of a brighter future. And I think that, having that prayer meditative sense within us, I think there's overlap between prayer and meditation. So it's difficult to, like I said, it's difficult to draw the line between the two sometimes. But I firmly believe that it's possible to do that. It's difficult at times, and sometimes when bad things happen, it can be very challenging, and I've been challenged myself with that. But I really believe it is possible to do that. It's just a matter of creating the time and the space to do that. And then I know in our busy lives that's very challenging. But I think we're all entitled to create at least 5 to 60 minutes a day where we're doing some kind of self-care, whether it's exercise, meditation, prayer. You can rotate all of those and make them interlap. And if you're having a really rough time and you need to create more space for self-care, I think that's important for all of us. It's important to me. I think it's important for everyone. And I try to make sure that, everyone I know, that I try to reinforce how important self-care is, even members of my own family, my friends. So yes, very good question. Good question. All right. And we have Dave Moore. Does it depend on if it is a prayer for as opposed to a prayer to? That is an interesting question. A lot of our prayers are for specific intentions. So I see the logic of that. And then, prayers to might be for different things. I mean, it could be prayers to find clarity, prayers to find a new job or career, prayers to find the right path when you're faced with a decision. So I think, that this might be a little more difficult question to answer, but I think it could. I think it's possible to have a prayer in your heart either way. Putting these two questions together, I think it is possible to do that. And I just, people have different ways that we all have different ways that we pray and pray for others, pray for specific things in our lives, pray for the things that those that we love, what they need, and pray for troubled parts of the world that we know need it. From here to China to Southern Sudan to France, I mean, the list can go on. And you literally cannot list all the places or people that around the world that need prayer. So, sometimes it's good to just pray for everyone that needs it. Ideally, that covers everyone, and you don't have to necessarily be able to state all of them. We maybe try to state in as many of them as possible, but we're not going to think of all of them. We just don't know. So I think, again, that it's a tougher question to answer. There is a dimension of either one. They're different. They're distinct. They're not entirely distinct. They're partly distinct. But the way I interpreted Kristen's question was that she was asking about kind of a sense of prayer, hope for a brighter future, promise of finding fulfillment in life, finding success in life, if whatever that means to each of us. And I know we all have different senses of that too, of what that means. So that's how I would answer that. Hopefully that's been responsive to your question, Dave. If it hasn't, I know you would let me know at your earliest convenience. So I do want to get to an interesting nuance of Stoicism that might help some of us that are maybe tied more to the modern age. I mean, I specialized in ancient history, and I didn't really specialize in philosophy. I was all over every period pretty much, but ancient history, I was dealing with Greco-Roman history primarily. So, but this professor from Creighton talked about how Stoicism relates to the philosophies of the Jedi and the Sith in the Star Wars movies. And I hadn't really thought about how it would relate to the Sith, but the parts about how it relates to the Jedi, I think are fascinating. Before I get to that, I forgot to, this is important, and I want to make sure this gets in this recording. There's an extremely, I'm really glad Kristen brought up the issue of prayer and that Dave follow up on it, because it helped me remember that I wanted to throw this out there. There's a serenity prayer that we pray a lot of times. And That's very Stoic. If you think about it, listen to the words. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So you have acceptance, realization that we can't change everything. We can change some things, but we simply can't change everything. There's no way we can, so we shouldn't expect ourselves to. We change what we can, we accept what we can't. Courage is a huge deal. I mean, when we get knocked down in life and we don't feel like getting back up, you have to have the courage to get back up. I mean, there's a Japanese proverb of fall 7 times, stand up 8. That's very powerful. That's what each of us are having to do. Obviously, many more times than that, but the point is, you keep standing every time you fall down. And really, the wisdom, the reason and logic intersect with that, but the wisdom to know the difference between what you can change and what we can't change. I think that's a very meaningful difference, and that acceptance is a key part of Stoicism. But I'm going to get to this. Is going to put a little different wrinkle on it. But going to the Star Wars movies, the Jedi, there's a huge emphasis on the present awareness, and that is something that is a big deal with meditation. Also, of really forgetting about the painful parts of the past, forgetting about the fearful worries of the future, and just isolating the present, realizing that all we have right now is right now, and nothing else is guaranteed. We don't have any guarantee of the future, of tomorrow, of 5 minutes from now. We don't know. The world could end in 1 minute. And I'm not saying that to make people fearful. I'm just trying to make the point that, all we have is every moment. And if we fail to live in that moment, we miss things. We miss out. We get to a point we say, wow, I lost months of my life where I was trapped in the past or fearful for the future. And so we have this seesaw going on, and Stoicism helps balance that. And the Jedi really emphasize the present. And I was struck when I read this article that there's a quote in here that even contains the term even-tempered, which is part of the topic of this blab. And what I wanted to get to is we can use this to change our temperament, to create a calm demeanor, to really be able to slow down, be more cautious, and intentional about what we're doing. But really the reason leads Stoics to concentrate on what is up to him and under his control, instead of worrying about fearing, anticipating, or being distracted by things that are not beyond things that are beyond our control and not up to us. So, timely behavior is everyone has control of that, and that's one of the virtues of Stoicism. So we're mindfully concentrating on what we can control, and that's really what allows us to be calm and even-tempered, no matter what happens. No matter what happens, bad as it can be, unexpected as it can be. And we create this high-minded, noble sense of heart. We rise above trivial and frivolous things that would bother non-Stoics. Non-Stoics get caught up with, oh, this trivial thing happened, and oh, it's a big deal, and I'm going to argue with somebody about this and get angry and waste a lot of time. Or this frivolous issue came up, and suddenly I'm off chasing this frivolous issue all over and wasting a lot of time that should be better spent on what I'm intended to be here and do. But with the Star Wars movies, there was, Yoda never, and I saw that Dave Moore was quoting Yoda above a little earlier, but Yoda never gets angry. And Luke starts having anger issues in The Empire Strikes Back. And so Yoda's trying to correct that and, restore him to more of an even keel, getting away from anger, fear, aggression, telling him that's the dark side of the Force. And so the Jedi logic comes down to fear leads to anger, which leads to hate, which leads to aggression. And then aggression leads to the suffering of the aggressor and the victim. So the Stoic wise man, just like Yoda, lacks the vices of fear, anger, hatred, and aggression. So, and there's a difference between aggression and pacifism. And so Jedis have to decide when they can fight. And Yoda's asked that at some point in The Empire Strikes Back. Yoda says, a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. So it's, if it's a self-defense matter, it's okay. And, if it's for knowledge, that's another issue, but you're not on the attack. So that's interesting. The parallels between Jedi philosophy and Stoicism, here they are briefly. It's the first one is nature, meaning the cosmos as a whole, is structured and well-ordered through and through according to logos or reason. And you'll recall Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and Stoicism has roots that Viktor Frankl picked up on. It's tied to Stoicism, at least in part. The rational part of his logotherapy is tied to Stoicism. So there's an interesting, more modern parallel there. Secondly, the agreement between Jedi philosophy and Stoicism. To live in agreement with nature requires embracing and making good use of all events that unfold in this rationally structured universe. So you're trying to live in harmony with the universe and to make the best of events as they occur, realizing that you don't have full control over them. So that's an interesting parallel. I hadn't really thought of Jedi philosophy being Stoic, but when I read this article, I really started thinking about why I like the Star Wars movies so much, and I think it's because there's just a deep philosophical, all these deep philosophical undertones in it, and the struggle between good and evil. And I think, we face that on a daily basis. We're faced decisions between, doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, at least. So Stoics are trying to live in agreement with virtue. Virtue is necessary for, virtue is the only necessary and sufficient condition for happiness, according to Stoics, and vice just creates misery. So for myself, last year, there was a point where, after losing my job, I wasn't Stoic. I was more melancholic. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to be melancholic forever? Or can I change? Can I be Stoic? And I just decided that's, the age of having a pity party and really being able to celebrate it. I mean, that's so yesterday. It's not productive. It's not helpful. It drags everybody down. It drags your friends down, drags your family down. It destroys relationships to be doing that on a constant basis. And that's something that I think those of us that are life coaches, we can really help people refocus, realize that you can't walk through life like that. It's unproductive. You end up wasting time. It's more productive to adopt Stoic philosophy, at least on a basic level, and not entirely. Like I said, I would have to have a different definition of mysticism for the soul, and and other things to really be able to do something with that. But the Stoic would try to free himself from all passion, excitation, and frivolity in order to be able to apply reason reliably. And I think there are, some healthy uses of passion by Stoics. I think they had three exercises of passion that were considered acceptable. Three emotional states that are not considered pathological movements of the soul. And those would be benevolence, wishing someone good for his own sake, joy, if you're in virtuous deeds, and caution, reasonable wariness, hesitating to act enough to make sure that we're making the right decision. So, if you look at the Star Wars movies, Yoda is benevolent and cautious. There are just all these parallels that I hadn't thought about with, comparing the Stoic philosophy with the Jedi philosophy. So really, and I'll summarize this briefly, and then we'll wrap up, I think, unless someone has questions or wants to jump in. Let's see. To recap, the virtues of the Jedi shares the Stoic are patience, timeliness, deep commitment, seriousness instead of frivolity, calmness instead of anger or euphoria, peacefulness instead of aggression, caution opposed to recklessness, benevolence as opposed to hatred, joy instead of being sullen or sad, passivity instead of being agitated, and wisdom. And that is a lot of points of commonality. You start to wonder if George Lucas was reading a lot of Stoicism when he was writing the book, the movie, the screenplay. And really, the person who most closely is identified with being Stoic in the films is Yoda, the sage, wise, serious one. The Stoic sage was called Spoudeos in Greek, which means serious person. So, think about that the next time you watch the Star Wars movies. Think about, is this a Stoic plot or not? And how can we apply Stoicism to modern life? And I'm going to, let's see. Marcus Aurelius, that I mentioned earlier, he was ruler of the Roman Empire between the years 161 and 180, just for your information. So that was shortly after the year that philosophers were banned from Rome in 89. Going back to the Jedi use discipline, commitment, and training to control themselves, thereby harnessing the power of the Force, which, in this discussion, that would be considered Stoicism, I would guess. The Sith, represented by Darth Vader and the Emperor, among others, they stoke their anger and hatred to empower themselves with the dark side of the Force, with evil. They feed rather than overcome their negative emotions within themselves. They seek to control not themselves, but others, in an ultimately doomed attempt to fill the cold black void between the mask or the hood with a false satisfaction that arises from domination and oppression of others. A Stoic can never be seduced by the dark side, but might feel well at home among the calm, self-disciplined, virtuous Jedi. Okay, well, this has been a good discussion of Stoicism and being even-tempered, trying to find ways to incorporate this into our daily lives and routine. I think there's a lot of depth with this topic, and I'm hoping to make at least a modified sense of Stoicism part of my life coaching practice, to teach clients and others to utilize it in their daily lives. Let's face it, there's going to be a lot more peace if we use it with our families and friends, at least from a relationship standpoint, to be able to function and move on and be productive as far as trying to deal with each other and deal with each other in an understanding, loving, caring way, and a way that really, we try to put ourselves in other people's shoes and not judge them, not respond with anger, try to contextualize what they're saying and doing, put it in perspective. I think it's an extremely helpful philosophy. It's a fascinating one. There's a lot of depth there. It's not without flaws. I think there are some flaws there. With it being an ancient philosophy, there were things it didn't account for very well, like the soul, for example. But again, the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks, and I would encourage all of you to look into Stoicism, see how it can help you and help you in dealing with others. And it's the type of thing that we can teach each other. it's a type of thing we can model this behavior to others. I think if we do that, we could transform the world in a beneficial way. And, we'd have better relationships. We'd have more relationships. We'd have much more meaningful relationships because we'd be listening to each other instead of trying to argue and fight all the time and interrupt each other. We have to pick our battles. We can't always win every argument. We don't have to attend every argument we're invited to. And in fact, the Stoic would say some arguments are worth not even participating in, maybe listening to for knowledge, reason. But I think, it's just it's too easy to get in these patterns of responding to everything, reacting to everything, overreacting to everything. Life's too short. We don't have time for that. We need to deal with things in more of a calm, rational, logical manner. But we also need to deal with people with compassion, love. Sometimes if we don't have any other prayer to pray and we can't think of what to pray, we come back to the Stoicism that's reflected in the Serenity Prayer. Sometimes we might not have the words and we ask for help with that, or we work meditation into our routine. And there are all kinds of apps and resources on that that are helpful. And there's some fantastic teachers of meditation. And I think if Stoics, if the ancient Stoics were here today, they would be people that would be meditating a lot. They'd be writing a lot. They'd be reflecting a lot. They'd be the people that are quietly walking while writing their notes and taking breaks to stop and write their notes somehow, whether it's in Evernote or an ancient papyrus writ, one of the two. You take your pick. Pick the visual image that's, works best for you. For me, I try to pick the papyrus writ just to take me back to some of the historical ways that they did things. But be calm, be stoic. Try to teach other people to be stoic. Try it for a week. Try it for a day. Try it for an hour. See what it does to your life. But I've made it a big part of my life, and I'm realizing that, finding out that having people saying, "You're so calm. You're so quiet. You're stoic. What happened to you? You're a completely different person." And it's intentional. It's intentional. I want to treat people with respect, with openness, with understanding. I want to grow in knowledge. I want to soak up knowledge every day. That's what Stoics do. We soak up knowledge. We process it. We deal with things in a rational way. We don't overreact to things. We don't try to punch out everybody verbally that attacks us. We just try to be calm and helpful, using meditation, prayer, writing, reflection, and really using listening carefully, deeply to everything that happens to us, and realizing that if we process all that and process it in a reasonable way, we can have a powerful transformational change in our lives, change the lives of others, and make everyone's life better. So I want to welcome all of you that have joined us today. I know I'm trying to keep up with everybody that's come in the room. I haven't done very well with that, trying to cover a lot of material in a short time, but I want to welcome Johnny has joined us, Bird has joined us, and I think it may be a couple others that have left, but I really want to welcome all of you that have come and attended, and all the people listening and replay. We'll be talking about Stoicism more in the future, and might be doing some advanced work in this area. I think it's very important, and I think it can change really the course of our lives and the course of history if more people would look at it and adopt enough principles of it to really be constructive, and powerful, transformational as far as dealing with others, having productive relationships, and seeking to improve the lives of others and not to destroy them. We need to build people up and not destroy them. Thank you very much. This is Jeremy Murphy. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm a life coach here, creator of the Positivity Patrol. I'll drop the Positivity Patrol link in here if you're interested. I will be I will be launching a free positivity course soon, and it'll be an advanced eight-week course that will build on that in an advanced fashion. And I'm just kind of finalizing that curriculum now. So stay tuned for more information on that. And we'll continue to have periodic shows updating you on subjects that I think are very important like this. Trying to identify subjects that have strong connection to positivity and that can help improve people's lives. And I'm here to help people in any way I can to transform their lives in a powerful way. So my door's open. I'm listening. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or want any more materials on Stoicism. I have a lot of them. I wish I saved some of my philosophy texts that might have had more of this information. And I wish I saved my History of Rome book from college too. I thought I still had that. That would have been helpful in preparing this. But anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Have a great Thanksgiving week. Look forward to talking to all of you later, and have a good day. All right. Bye.